Alright, let's dive into the world of Regency, and oh, what the heck, let's throw in some Old West romance while we're at it. If you're looking for a historical romance book that does not have explicit sex scenes in it, you should try Edenbrooke by Julianne Donaldson. It's very Jane Austen-ish, and I loved it. I don't even know how to begin describing it, or really the plot, but there's a mix-up in love interests with her sister and a lot of other misunderstandings, and it's just adorable. And then I picked up one of her other books, Blackmore, in which Kate wants to travel to India, but her mother makes a bargain with her. She can go if she first gets and rejects 3 marriage proposals. Her best friend Henry is about to propose to another woman, but first she convinces him to help her beat her mother's machinations. And while I think I liked Edenbrooke better, this was still just a soothing read for my soul. I am so glad I found Julianne Donaldson. Now, if she would just write faster and get me more books. So then I decided to try to find other similar books, so I looked through Goodreads recommendations and picked The Maid of Fairborn Hall by Julie Klassen. And yeah, that did not work out so hot. This is the plot. Get this. To escape an unwanted suitor, this rich girl flees her home and becomes the maid in the house of an old beau who she rejected in the past. What is so implausible to me about this story is that multiple people figure out who she is throughout the book, but don't even approach her about it. They just let her carry on being a maid in their house without even being like, hey, what you doing here? The psychological motivation for any of their actions is just not well thought out, and it kinda drove me insane. One of my favorite authors, Courtney Milan, has a new series out called The Worth Saga. I just read book 1, Once Upon a Marquis. Marquess? Isn't it said Marquis? I think it said Marquis. We're going with Marquis. The actual plot isn't the most original. Christian Trent was Judith Worth's best friend and had wanted to marry her. But then he ruined her father and got her brother exiled to Australia. Now, that kind of ruined the whole marriage idea, but Judith has got this problem and has to turn to Christian for help. So again, I've easily read 10 romance novels with this same plot, but Courtney Milan is just so great at dialogue and characters that I did not care. I just love sitting in her world, listening to her characters talk. And in my quest to read everything by Courtney Milan, I read her novella, The Lady Always Wins, which is about 2 childhood friends who always thought they would marry, but when his family threatens to disinherit him, she refuses him and marries another man. Fast forward however many years later, her husband has died, and he reappears on the scene, bent on marrying her, but he has to convince her in like 3 days because he's about to lose his fortune in a business deal gone bad, and he thinks she won't marry him if he isn't rich. This is a ridiculous little story which manages to twist and turn several times in its short 70 pages. This is definitely not where I recommend starting with Courtney Milan, but if you're well into her roster, it's a fun, if preposterous, little side note. I decided to try a new historical romance series, Covent Garden Clubs by Shanna Galen. First book is Earls Just Want to Have Fun. She's a pickpocket, but it turns out she might actually be the long-lost daughter of a noble family. This plot was ridiculous. The book wasn't horrible. I just couldn't get over how quickly they glossed over how easy it was for her to go from pickpocket to totally reasonably passable as nobility. Yeah, no. The Love Affair of an English Lord, Boscastle Book 2 by Gillian Hunter. In this one, Chloe is exiled to the country for an indiscreet kiss and ends up with a supposedly dead viscount in her closet. The rest of the plot revolves around midnight assassinations and the neighborhood thinking he's a ghost. And this took me over a month and a half to read. Romance novels do not take me a month and a half to read. So in short, I found this one kind of boring. I read Sarah MacLean's book, Never Judge a Lady by Her Cover. I tend to like her books, so this was a fairly safe bet for me. In this one, our heroine is a ruined sister of a duke. Her second life is as a notorious founder of a legendary gaming hell in London. Now she must re-enter the world of nobility for the sake of her daughter. Our hero in this story is Duncan West, who is the city's leading publisher of newspapers. His scandal-mongering has inadvertently once again drug our heroine into society's crosshairs. And you know, this was a solid historical romance. She's spunky without being a caricature of the archetype, and he's not as me-grunt He-Man as a lot of historical romance leads tend to be, so I was happy. 11 scandals to start to win a duke's heart. Love by Numbers number 3, also by Sarah McLean. I read the first 2 books in this series 3 to 4 years ago and enjoyed them, especially the characterization. This is me finally finishing up the series. This is about the Italian and not entirely proper Juliana, and Simon, a very by-the-book proper English duke. I did not like the first half of this book, found it fairly unoriginal and stereotypical, but the second half was actually kind of sweet. It was kind of like reading 2 different books, actually. The characters started out frankly really flat, but became much more interesting and complex by the end. But man, that first half. So I have been looking for another good historical Western romance series, and I thought I'd try the Lay Brothers Texas Trilogy by Lorraine Heath, Book 1, Texas Destiny. This is about a mail-order bride who is picked up from the train by her fiancé's brother, and they have to take like a several-week journey back to the ranch together, and guess what happens? The whole story has this relentless march to the inevitable face-off, and even though you know there's no way the story won't have a happy ending, it was still like watching a train barreling down on you the entire book, and wondering how they were gonna get out of this. And without giving away any spoilers, they take this way past the point most romance books would have chickened out and resolved the conflict with a little bow. I am not great with uncomfortable situations in my books, movies, or entertainment in general, so this book was really stressful for me. What books have you read that just made you uncomfortable? And what historical romance books should I be tackling next?